We interrupt this introduction music to let you know at the conclusion of the episode, hidden away from your prying eyes or whatever, there will be a secret game review, an Easter egg, if you will, for the holiday season for those who are religious. In any case, stay tuned to the end of the episode and you'll get that game review of Rendering Ranger R2 Rewind. Hello, my name is Ben.
Hello, my name is Doug.
And welcome to the Too Vague Podcast. One word, two hosts, stories, trivia, and video games. Today, game designer Doug. It's so awesome to finally get connected. Why don't you just introduce yourself and your company and what you guys are doing?
Sure, thanks. Yeah, it's good to finally get on and talk to you. We are a very small indie game studio that just made their first game. It's called Roast. It's a cozy card game about roasting marshmallows around the campfire with friends and family. Your objective is to make the most delicious and gooey s'mores. You do that by combining your toasted mallows with grahams and chocolates from your hand. So it's a fun, family-friendly, cute little card game. It's our first publication, though I've worked on a lot of side projects that didn't quite make it out the gate, if you know what I mean. That one is our first actual publication, and things have just kind of been accelerating from there.
Yeah.
We got a lot of plans coming up in this next year, and I hope a lot of them are as much of a hit as Roast has been.
Are you going to be working on things like booster packs for Roast, or are you just going to go with a new thing and explore the new stuff?
So there's been some kind of debates between me and my brother. It's been a very collaborative process from the beginning, and as per the usual with siblings, we come up with generally different ideas, which I think is a good thing.
Because you bounce them off each other, and my brother is about 4 years younger than myself. The same difference between you and your brother collaborating with a sibling is different, but you have kind of a shorthand too, because you know how the other person communicates.
Yeah, I would definitely say that's true. And there's a rapport that you have with people, right? That it's just a level of knowing that person that you may or may not say this or that. And it's like, it takes a really long time to get to that with others.
But that's something you have with your family.
I would say for sure. I think a lot of the success came out of just being able to be super honest about, say, like an idea, and just being able to say, I'm not feeling this one, or I really think this should be in there, and stuff like that.
Has it always been card games that you're interested in, or has it been an assortment of different things?
Oh, no. I mean, I love games. I love them.
Video and otherwise, yeah?
Yeah. We actually started mostly doing VR games. So we were playing around a lot with the Oculus. I would definitely say we were a gaming family growing up. We played Uno all the time.
Uno is a classic.
Oh, it's so good. I saw a picture today where the Uno deck is like ripped in half because it's been used so much. And I had to comment. I had to be like, yeah, that was pretty much mine. She lasted. The old family deck lasted.
Right. When was my first Uno deck? When was it invented? Because I for some reason, I think it was late 70s.
I'm not sure. It's one of those things that's kind of funny. Like, it almost seems like something that's always been there. It's hard to think of it being invented. Like, there was a time before Uno? What?
Card games have been a big part of your family doing things together in addition to VR. Or was VR just a thing you were experimenting with?
The interest doing the VR, I'd say definitely is still there, and I do enjoy making the VR games. I've made several like small ones and some that I hope to basically re-release someday. The only thing that one of the things that kind of stopped that route for now is just the market. It became pretty clear that if I was going to make the VR game, it's for me to play, and that's it. As such a small creator, it's already so hard to get out there that I think it's just an extra challenge. And unless Meta is pumping you up, it's just really hard for an individual. So yeah, the card game seemed like easier way to get in, and the idea was gaining traction at the time and everything like that. So it seemed like people are really loving this and we've got something here, so let's just kind of keep going with it. You had asked where did the idea come from? And I think it kind of came from two places. One, a physical place, and the other a community place, I guess. The original idea was I was living in this RV. I would take it around and I would go to see all these beautiful natural places. And at the same time, I was kind of looking into getting away from the apartment life, the city life, stuff like that. So you kind of had that, and you had this idea of freedom and all of that with the RV. And then the other thing was, I lived in Southern California and Nick lived up here in Washington. We didn't really get to hang out, as much as we used to. After he had some issues and he couldn't really look at a screen anymore, it was like, well, what are we going to do? We don't live in the same spot. And I think it really kind of grew to think about our relationships to our local communities. What does the community really look like, and this and that? And just kind of thought back to what was the most we're here together kind of moment. And it happened to be, camping and roasting marshmallows over the fire. That's kind of where the inspiration came from. From there, it was like, okay, well, this will be a fun thing for us to design together as family. We'll make these funny little characters and we'll get to chat about it, and that'll keep us closer together. And then we made that, and we were like, oh, this is actually pretty good. We'll try it with our immediate family. And we were expecting, they would be like, oh, it was whatever. But they kept wanting to play it, and they really liked it. So it was like, okay, well, if they really like it, let's try regular people, just random people outside our family, and let's see how they feel about it. And we had somebody suggest doing an open playtest at Mock's Boarding House up here in Washington.
Oh, okay. I was just about to ask you about playtesting a card game versus playtesting video games and how that works and how that's different.
I would say with playtesting the card game, it's super important to get real people to be there to see how they react when they're playing it.
By real people, you mean not friends, not family?
Unbiased people, random people that are gamers that are going to play, and they're going to, for the most part, give you a more honest reaction to the game. You've always got skews in either way. You've got the person that's overly nice because, they're a nice person and they don't want to be mean. And then you've got the overly critical person who's like complaining about everything, and it's like it doesn't matter how good the game was, you were going to complain just because you wanted to complain kind of person.
Basically anyone who uses Twitter. Sorry.
Oh man, I'm pretty proud to have said I never had a Twitter, I never had an X, and I never will.
For the show, I used to have a Twitter, but I quit. Now I'm a Twitter quitter. Yeah, it was very toxic. You can't really escape the toxicity of social media, but I understand real people as opposed to people who are overly critical for the sake of being overly critical and not because they want to provide feedback on a game. There's sometimes where people will criticize things just for the sake of criticizing, like going to a restaurant.
Yeah, definitely.
When you were developing this with your brother, did you use some sort of a simulator or something that's on the computer to flesh out the rules and things, or did you just come up with it as you went?
So somebody suggested kind of early on that we take, say, a spreadsheet and we break it into its components in that way where you say, okay, so for example, in the game there's 4 Ninja Mallows in the game, right? And so this gives you a % chance based on the amount of players to draw this card at any given time. And then, this kind of gives you some insight into how likely it is to get a card. We talked about that for a while, and when you say it like that, it seems like a really good idea where you're like, okay, so then this lets you basically know what's the chance of you getting a card. But to be honest, when we would do these playtests, there was usually these kinds of people that would come and they were really concerned with finding the optimum micro strategy for winning. Not to take anything away from them. There are games where that's the goal, that's the objective, and that's what you want to do. And, for me personally, there's a lot of games that I stopped playing because they became those machines where it's like, if you're not doing that, then there's no point in playing. And to me, I'm like, doing math isn't a game. It's if I'm going to micro super optimize, then I would rather build a reactor or something.
Reminds me of the game Balatro, which came out early last year. In that game, you get different cards and different jokers and different packs of cards that can impact the way your deck works. Based on the order of the jokers, sometimes the math is different, right?
Mm-hmm.
As you play, you kind of have to figure that out. But there are people who do that, who micromanage, who actually want to get the highest score possible. So they have their own spreadsheet or their own method of doing this. And it's kind of like, at some point, that's not fun to me. Just kind of figuring it out as you go along. That's the fun. But micromanaging your deck is not where I like to play. Board games or video games, it's pretty much the same thing. I'm doing this for fun. I'm not doing this to win.
I mean, I couldn't agree with you more, man. Like, I played that game. I actually bought it and played it a bunch just because you suggested it and I've heard about it and everything like that.
What did you think?
I thought it was pretty good. It's awesome that an indie game is experiencing so much success, and it's like, yes, awesome.
Yeah.
I do feel like it is an interesting take on something that you know and love. You know what poker is most likely. So you can pick it up. I don't have to read a paragraph on this game to understand how it works. And it's very like, okay, you get it really quickly. And there's enough fun in there that you do get to do the different runs and say, oh, how can I build it this time?
I'm not a poker guy. I was really skeptical when I saw people saying, oh, this is great, you got to check it out. And it really proved me wrong. It was like, I got it from my Mac and I played hours and hours and hours and hours on that. And then I saw that it came out on the pads and I got a version for that. So I'm unlocking everything in there. And there's enough diversity. You can change the rules a little bit. There's different chips, different decks that behave differently and give you a little bit of variety if the way that you're playing starts to get a little boring. I was quite surprised. It's not the kind of game that I usually buy, the deck builder, but this one's a lot of fun. I do enjoy it.
I think the thing that keeps it fun is the diversity of the cards and your availability to them. Because like the way they made it every time it's a new run, I think is the real stroke of genius there, because it really prevents you from getting the Magic the Gathering problem. I love Magic. I love playing it. It's a fun game, but I don't have a deck anymore, and I generally don't play it just because that micro optimization thing. There is somebody out there who is literally like combing every card, and they're doing the matrix of calculations to get some kind of micro strategy that will win. And sometimes it's in even like the lamest ways, and it's like it takes me completely away from the fantasy of what it's supposed to be. Right? It's supposed to be like, oh, the giant colossus rips through the forest and is, you're facing him down and you got to take him out. And there's all these different colors and they all have these different abilities and everything. And then you go look up this like sparking deck and it's like, oh, well, okay. So basically this operates on the principle that there's a whatever % chance that I'll get this card in my first hand. And therefore I've killed you within 3 hands. And if I don't do that, then you win. Like when you're to that point where you know what's going to happen, and you're 2 turns in and you give up because you know all of the cards in your deck and there's no possibilities, then I'm like, okay, Magic does do a very good job of saying this strategy is boring. We don't want people playing like this. It's going to kill the game. And they do try to cycle out cards.
But you still have to purchase the cards. Do they still come in like packs and things, or are they more sold as a complete deck now?
I think they still do both. But then they have like all of these seasons, and if you're going to play, how can you be sure that one of these cards isn't one of those? I'd say if you like playing Magic, or if you want to play Magic, the best thing to do is literally just get a starter deck, and then get another starter deck and play it totally randomly, because they're pretty balanced most of the time.
When did Magic the Gathering come out? It was in the 90s, I thought, but I remember my buddy and I buying a big box of these things and doing a little baseball kind of, you pick the cards and then we'll trade the ones that we want to trade with each other. And, oh, I got 3 of these, so do you want 2 of them? Or just that was fun. Just that collection piece of it. And the artwork is unique and interesting. Then we started playing, and that's kind of where I checked out. At a certain point, I checked out. It's just not my thing, just that kind of game. Do you play chess at all?
I play like amateur chess. I'll play maybe once in a week. I think chess has some of the same problems that we've been talking about, where there's this level you get with chess. And it's funny, I was at one of these meetups and I was talking to somebody who was their like state chess master or whatever when he was younger, and he's like, yeah, I don't play anymore. And we were talking about it, and he was like, pretty much for this exact reason, where it becomes so close to just doing math, where you're like, okay, this person moved this here, which means that in 12 moves they're going to do this. You lose a lot of the human part of it, where, oh, I left my horse undefended, because it's not about like moving the pieces anymore. It's just everybody knows all of the different plays,
The openings and the different.
the openings. Yeah.
Yeah, my brother used to, when we would talk on the phone, it was like, stay away from chess, stay away from chess, stay away from chess. But it always got into chess. He really enjoys it. So naturally, I'm interested in hearing what he has to say about it. But man, he could talk about chess for a long time. And he used to play speed chess in tournaments. Lately, he's switched to golf, which is the weirdest switch.
What?
Yeah, for some reason, he just happened to go to a driving range. His buddy plays golf, and he's just starting to get into golf. And it's like, wow, okay. He likes to do one thing really, really well and get to that point and then move on.
Okay.
And I try to stay away from that. I try and keep whatever I'm doing fresh so I don't get bored of it. But I mean, I can understand, like, I want to be the best person at this. I can understand the appeal. It just doesn't appeal to me. And it sounds like it doesn't appeal to you either.
For the most part, yeah. So I played in a couple of pro fighting game tournaments. I almost went pro as I probably would have chosen Smash Bros, and that probably would have been my game. But, I didn't do it. I could have seen doing that, but it was kind of the same thing, where it's not really about the other player anymore. It's not really about all of the intricacies of the game and the different characters. It's really about like frame rates. Like, you're to the point where,
Yeah, it's about math.
yeah, you're just doing the math and you're saying like, okay, this character has this many plus frames, this many minus frames. And it's like, it was too far from the part of it that I loved to really want to do that. Because I think once you go down that route with it, it's kind of forever changed.
Yeah.
It's almost like seeing how the trick is done.
Yeah, you lose some of the joy of playing whatever it is. I think I don't let myself get to that point usually. It's like I will play a thing as long as it engages me. I don't have to be the best at it. I can just play it for as long as I like it, kind of arcade style, and then just move on to the next thing. I want something fresh. I want something new.
Mm-hmm.
I know what I enjoy now as far as games are concerned. And that's changed too. I mean, I used to like playing the big one when I was in the arcade was Tekken 2. There was a Tekken 2 tournament. Me and this other guy were the first to kind of figure out Jun Kazama's looping maneuvers.
Yeah.
That people couldn't figure out for some reason. And then they tried to do a tournament and they're like, no one was interested because of that. But then eventually people figured out how to beat it, right? But the fun was just playing the thing and that's it. And I don't have to win or whatever. I just play it for fun.
Yeah, I totally get that.
Another cool thing, my arcade was one of the test arcades for Mortal Kombat.
What? No way.
This guy, Neil, who owned this arcade called The Machine that I went to ever since I was a little kid. At the Crystal Point Mall, it was a pinball arcade. It started out that way as soon as pinball became legal in Chicago, which was, I want to say it was 76, which is really bizarre.
Wait, there was a time when pinball was not legal?
Yeah, pinball was not legal in Chicago, even though they made most of the pinball machines.
What? No.
Let me get that date for you, too, because it's an interesting sort of factoid. People thought it was a game of chance. Yeah, okay, it was 77. Pinball machines became legal January of 1977 after being illegal for 40 years.
40 years?
Like I said, the weird part is they were making pinball machines in Chicago and shipping them out other places.
Wow.
But you couldn't play them in Chicago. until 1977.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I was a huge pinball fan too as a kid. They've always been a part of my life. I never really thought this is illegal. But anyway, as I was saying, he had been in the industry for so long that he had all the connections with Williams, and Midway being one of the first arcades in the area. We got a lot of test machines that no one else got, and that was really cool. Most of the Williams ones were usually, they did the green light on them. We also did not only test video games, but pinball machines too. We had the test version of Doctor Who well before it actually was officially released because there were some problems with the licensing and stuff. So it was a really cool place where I lived, and I'm very thankful for having that opportunity to play some of those games when they were still being fleshed out to some extent.
That's wild. I mean, I'm a huge Mortal Kombat fan, so I think that's pretty cool.
They had to change up all the moves and stuff once we figured them out, and everyone in our arcade was like, "Oh!" And I eventually worked at that arcade for a little bit before I moved out to Arizona. Back to games. What are your favorite games to play that aren't card games? It sounds like you like pretty much any type of game, just as long as it's fun.
I would say so. I enjoyed everything from Sonic to Metal Gear Solid to actually the only one that I don't usually get into that much is first-person shooters. Pretty much anything else other than that. It's not really necessarily the genre that gets me. It's usually the game itself that gets me. So there's definitely ones that I will pick out and just be like, oh, this is awesome. I like RTSs a lot.
Okay.
The latest Age of Empires, that's one of my go-tos. I usually play a game of that every once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I think they did a really good job with the way everything is split up and the different unit types and how they move and how they work. And it still has that good aspect of it where there are hard counters to this and that. And you can't just do one strategy and win.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, every strategy has a way to get around it. So it keeps it pretty fresh and everything like that. So unfortunately, I don't really have a lot of time most of the time nowadays.
Developing games, is that like your job, or is it something that you do as a hobby or for fun or in your free time? Do you have a quote unquote a big boy job? Is this your job, game designer now?
I would say yeah. So the funny part about that is like the design and general manufacturing stuff, like there is a lot of work that goes into it that I will do, like coordinating with the artists for new cards, but most of the time nowadays, like when we were first designing the game, a lot of it was really just game design. What are the characters going to do? Can we test this out? How does this play? How does this feel? All that stuff. Since having succeeded, or actually even before our Kickstarter, there was this kind of massive shift where most of the time I'm pretty much a salesperson. I mean, I go around to a lot of different meetup groups, and like Monday to Saturday, I'll be at event this, event that. And I'm really just kind of finding all of these different mediums, like chatting with you or doing this other thing or whatever it is to try and get the game out there and get it, well known and everything like that. So it's pretty much more than a full-time job at this point.
It's more than a full-time job. Okay.
And it entails doing a lot of different things. Like I'm not a social media person at all. I had never touched it really before I started doing this, and now I do almost every platform except for X.
Yeah.
I don't know. We're kind of in this spot now where it's so awesome to see all the momentum built up from the Kickstarter and everything like that. And we are kind of progressing. And I guess in my head, I thought we would find somebody with a skill set that wanted to kind of come along for the ride, either for some kind of shares or something like that, whose skill set more closely matches doing the social media stuff, because I'm very much one of those people, like, if I'm not good at something, I don't pretend to be.
Right.
I'm not good at basketball. I can't shoot for fish. I can't. So
Right.
it always seems silly to me to be like, oh yeah, well, put me in on that, coach. I have a lot of other talents that I would kind of prefer to focus on, but as of right now, we're still kind of in that spot where we're not going to be able to really pay somebody full time to do that. So it's a lot of community building and getting stuff started and trying to find kind of what people want, because sometimes it's kind of like, do you like this? No response. Okay. And you can't tell which direction do you guys really want to go.
It's sort of a weird alchemy, kind of a mysterious concoction, right?
Yeah. And it can get strange when you're kind of putting what you wanted versus what's practical or what people are going to want. So you might be thinking, oh, we'll do this or we'll do that. And it might be a great idea, but it might just be too complicated for people.
That's really interesting with taking something creative that you made, and then actually the marketing side is figuring out, maybe it's also a little bit the creative side. You're just tweaking. You're seeing what works, what doesn't. So you said building a community, as a game maker in the physical sense, as opposed to some of the channels that people use for video games, like your Discord. Do you use the same types of things to build your community, or you're just talking the social media side of it? That's how you're building your community, is through your channels.
I would say we're doing a bit of everything right now. I mean, definitely posting and trying to get people online and trying to let them know about stuff we're doing. But one of the goals of this game was to help people build their real community in their real life, and to kind of remind people, it can be fun to go and see people and hang out in real life and everything like that. So and this is definitely coming from somebody who wouldn't go to a public event or wouldn't do this or would just play video games or everything. So, I've definitely been on that side of it. And I think that it's kind of the hope that I can make that change for other people that I've found by promoting this game, is to go out to places where, I'm not super comfortable. I'm not a great public speaker out there doing this. And I think it's been helpful and everything like that. So yeah, I mean, we're using all of the channels right now, and we're trying to organize more local events and get involved with like the state parks and this and that.
That's really cool.
Thanks. So we just announced that we're going to do a pledge for an amount of the sales, our retail sales to shops, going to the National Park Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope to be able to do more in the future, not just straight donations, and to different organizations and stuff like that.
That's awesome. That's really great. Sometimes people just think of it as a game. You know what I mean? It's just, oh yeah, that's just a game. But a game can be so much more for the designer and even for people who play it. A game generally is social. There are those games where you play against fictitious, what are they called? The cooperative games. But it's all community. Any game generally has more than two people playing. That's cool that you're doing that as far as you're contributing a bit of the sales. Hold on. Hey, Mango, stop. Stop. He's playing with a little thing I have to keep him away from the cabinets because he liked to pull them open when he was a kitten.
He just opens them and leaves them there?
Yeah, I've got magnetic locks on most of the cabinets. He turned on the oven once, which was not good. Fortunately, I was working from home at the time.
You think he does it on purpose?
I don't think so. I think he's just,
No,
I don't think so.
know. I say that because my pet snake is like that sometimes, or he'll do things and you're like, did you do it on purpose? I don't know.
That's interesting. Have you always been into nature and stuff like that? Because when I think of video game players, I generally think the opposite. And this is wrong, I'm sure, but being a shut-in, you did talk about how it's challenging sometimes in groups for you, and that this is kind of helping you get out of that. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would say so. it does help rehabilitate some of the patterns and tendencies we have nowadays, especially with the screens everywhere and the this and the that. And, I was a programmer for 12 years, man. Like, I mean, I get it. I'm not knocking anybody for their electronics use, but you have to take the bad with the good. And some of the good of our modern convenience is just, it's harder to be forced to kind of remember what's out there.
Yeah.
I definitely would say I wasn't somebody that was against nature in any way. I would definitely go out into nature. I would go to the beach. I would go here or there. So I wasn't quite shut in like that, where I was always glued to my computer. But there's two things about it. I think number one has been the climate change existential threat. With our current climate, we'll just say it that, in both senses of the word, the physical climate and the political climate.
Right.
Every day I see stuff happen. And I think maybe I should go out and I should say this or say that. And I think what I really wanted to do, or one of the things we were hoping to do, is create a reset of sorts, a new platform. We talked about X and the kinds of stuff you're going to hear on there. And, there's a lot of people that will go and they will argue to argue. And it's almost battling against somebody rather than battling for somebody. And we're battling for a place for people to rebuild, a place for people to come and just be themselves and be what they want to be and all of that stuff. So in the same sense, I think that the call to nature is just a look at our current environment, undeniable stuff that's going on. I grew up in California, spent my whole life in California, would love to be able to go back someday. And the LA fires, like half of it's burning down. So
right.
I would love to be part of the change, I think. I'm definitely not the most extreme person. I'm not like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go climb
Mount Everest.
reindeer in sandals, and I'm you see pictures of people and they like packed up their bag on the side of the mountain and they're like sleeping in this bag flinging from the mountain, and I'm like, that's cool, man. I'm not taking anything away from you, but
not how I have fun. No.
Not me.
Yeah. We got exposed to camping, but it's just never something I enjoyed. What I do enjoy is going to places that I've never been to before and exploring them. I went to Dead Man's Flats in Canada.
Okay.
Dead Man's Flats is just outside of Calgary, but I went there just to go skiing, and just being there in the wilderness was kind of like, it was a change that I needed to reset myself, reset my batteries, and communing with nature is something that, every once in a while, it's something that's good to do. See what's out there. Go up in the mountains. The environment is a problem and something we need to be aware of. I totally agree with that assessment. We need to do something about it now, or it's going to be probably at the point of no return at some point. It's a sad thing, but enjoying it while it's still here and trying to convince others of the fact that it needs to be addressed. That's all we can do. And doing that on social media is not productive. Doing that as a part of promoting your game, I would say, is definitely constructive. And providing a place where people can be comfortable talking about that stuff and being in a community. So that's really cool. To go back to you're kind of expanding your skill set and doing the sales and doing the social media things that you didn't used to do before. I have sort of this social anxiety that's getting a lot better now. When I'm in a big group of people, I get very, very anxious unless I have a plan, unless I have something going on. So the last couple of years, I've been going to PAX to do stuff for the show, interviewing people. That has helped me a lot just as far as managing my discomfort. Even when I'm just walking around the show, I know how to escape, which is identify where the door is so I can go out and just de-stress and then I can go back in. It's something that even if it's uncomfortable, at a certain point, you'll figure out the magic formula to maybe even come to enjoy it, right? Anyway, I'm babbling.
No, I definitely am very similar. I'm very much like you in that sense. That technique, I think, was very, very helpful for me too. I think a lot of these events, one of the reasons I was able to do them and go out there. I mean, like going out there with the Marley costume, I had this giant cardboard that looked like this marshmallow, and I was getting all these looks, and like, I mean, that was the point.
Was that here in Tucson that you were doing that?
No, that wasn't. I went to a bunch of different places in SoCal.
Okay.
So you can see on the Instagram, for example, there's all these pictures of this silly mallow around all of these famous places. I think that was one of the things that helped me because I got so much enthusiasm. I got so many people that would smile and they would laugh and they would be like, "Whoa!" and even just excited. Made their day a little bit better because somebody was doing something, and but then you would get this one person that gave you this look. For me personally, in the beginning, that really was hard to get over in the sense that I was instant doubt, instant like, what am I doing? Like all of these things.
Yeah.
And then I think having that ability to say, you know what, I've got a purpose here. I'm not just doing whatever. I'm here for a reason. I think is super helpful. So yeah, I think if people need that to kind of get started, that's an amazing thing to do.
Yeah. For me, what other people think has never been a problem. I blame my generation, Gen X. In my life, it's been, if you don't understand it, that's your problem. I mean, it's it's dismissive, but if you're going to try and do something that's obviously to hurt, I don't care. Just if you want to do it, but it's not going to do anything to me. It's my punk rock nature or whatever.
Yeah.
Let me see what time it is and we can just close the show. Yeah, we'll just do it as an interview. I can just do it as an interview show. And then if you want to do a word-centric show at some point, just let me know and we can talk about whatever word you want to talk about. Card has a lot of definitions, by the way, so it's a good thing I didn't go down that rabbit hole, but maybe at some point we could do it and we can talk about the Dewey Decimal System and all sorts of card-related things. Have you ever heard the expression, that guy's a card?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I've heard that, but I never understood it. I was like,
I never did either. I still don't.
maybe, maybe like stiff, but then it's always used like you're a wild card, or like whenever somebody says that in the movie and they're like, "Oh, you're such a card," it's like you're so willing to get rid of the social norm, or you're like outside of the norm or whatever. Like, I don't understand how cards fit into that at all. Like,
it says in the definition, dated, informal, a person regarded as odd or amusing. So you're a card. I don't know if that's negative or not. Odd or amusing. Those seem to be different. But I don't know. I guess it's all the way you look at it.
I would say odd is kind of flattering,
I would say so.
Most people wouldn't, but I probably would.
Exactly. Before the Democratic Party went ahead and ruined weird. Man, I was weird for a while, but now I can't be weird anymore. I have to be odd. Thank you for taking some time and talking with me about Roast and the development of your game. Do you have anything you want to say to the folks as far as contributing or buying or finding out about this game? I'll put all the links in the show notes, but if you have anything that you want to just do a sales pitch at the end here.
Sure. Yeah, I would absolutely love it if they would go ahead and check out the game on roastgame.com, roast-game.com. They can pick up a copy of either the regular or the deluxe, which has the nice wood carved box on there. And so that's if you want to check out the game, play it, everything like that. And then we're also on the Instagrams and Blue Sky and all of that stuff. If anybody uses Discord, I also have a Discord channel.
Cool.
That I'm trying to grow. And it's really supposed to be a place for all of the things we kind of talked about in the podcast, people to come in and just chat about your favorite games, chat about, whatever.
Yeah.
Good times you had camping, or if you have some stuff that you want to ask questions about the expansion that's coming out or any of the things we're doing. Yeah, it's just a real chill group.
A safe, curated space, correct?
Yeah, our rules pretty much no politics. There's pretty much everybody friendly. Like you're not going to get like censored or anything. You can pretty much say what you want, but if it's something that people are arguing about or this or that, then it's just kind of like we ask you to just do that privately.
Yeah, take it offline, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, but so it is curated. You're keeping an eye out on what's going on, so that's good.
So, I mean, I'll be totally honest. I think we're close to 40 members. I haven't had to really talk to anybody.
Break out the band hammer.
Yeah, I haven't had to tell anybody that because, like, yeah, we're all super. Everything people say is like super positive and everything. But
Yeah.
going forward, I definitely do intend it to keep that overall positive vibe. So
Just like the game and just like your mission, very positive.
yeah, definitely.
Very cool. Thank you so much, Doug, for joining us. Do you spell your name Doug?
Yeah.
Okay. That's a silly question, but ever since I met a guy who spelled his name Dug, I've had to ask that.
Is that no?
Yeah.
Really?
There was a gentleman, my friend Andrew was on the show. We used to work at a coffee shop, and that was his name, Dug, Doug.
Okay.
He was well aware his name was a verb.
I've had people spell it like that on me before, but usually it's people that are like, when they're writing it that way, they're like, this guy's name is a verb? This doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Before we sign off, funny story. My brother's friend, who got him into the golfing.
Okay.
His name is Chase, and his brothers and their dog are Ty and Drew. So it's Drew, Ty, Chase, and then their dog's name is Doug. Anyway, thank you, Doug, for joining us on this week's episode of the Too Vague Podcast. We'll be back in your feed with a regular word episode, but I want to just thank you. So, thank you for sharing your joy with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, and I can't wait to come on back and do the word-based one.
Think about a word that you're really passionate about. It doesn't have to be anything game-related because we'll connect it to games as a part of the exploration of it.
All right, that sounds good.
Awesome. Have a good day, folks at home, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
I can be old now, so I can be crotchety if I want to. All right, so the way I start the show is I go, hello, my name is, and then you say, hello, your name is, and then we say Slim Shady. I didn't realize that until just now. Oh my gosh. Did I rip that off from Marshall Mathers? Did I do that?
I mean, you know the answer to that, right? Or are you trolling me? Or
But anyway, give me 5 seconds and then we'll get right into it, okay?
For sure.
Hello, my name is, oh boy, that sounded bad. Now I'm just thinking of that.
The fact that it's from Slim Shady?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm just, I can't get that out. I hope you enjoyed the interview that I had with Doug. Check out Roast. I've got all the information in the show notes for you. So thank you to Jasmine James, the promoter. I got a review code. The game is Rendering Ranger R2 Rewind, developed by Limited Run Games and Rainbow Arts, published by Ziggurat. It is basically a port of a game that came out for the Super Famicom in Japan only. There was going to be a US and European release, but Virgin Interactive made the decision that it was going to only be released in Japan, so it was never released here. And the original game was going to use hand-drawn graphics, but due to the success of Donkey Kong Country, the producers decided they wanted to use rendered graphics. The game was created, programmed and such like, by Manfred Trenz. I remember seeing games of his when I used to play my Commodore 64. He was the director of the Turrican series. According to an interview with him, originally the game was named Targa, and it featured hand-drawn graphics, and later they were changed to pre-rendered graphics, once again because of the success of Donkey Kong Country. So the name was changed to Rendering Ranger. In this re-release, they've included both versions of it, the original version of what would have been released, Targa, and then also the game that was released in Japan, which was entirely in English. Only 10,000 copies of the original game were made. Limited Run Games, actually, as a part of this whole promotion, did have some, if you go to their website, you can see that they had a version of this game that they actually produced for the new Super Nintendo. So they've got a Super Nintendo cartridge that they put out for this, but they were a limited number of these. So if you wanted to play it on your original Super Nintendo for the first time in the US, you could have. Unfortunately, they sold out very quickly, so you can't get them anymore unless you go on. Do people still go on eBay and stuff like that to get used copies of stuff? I don't know. Let me get into the reviews. Once again, thank you to Jasmine. And I've done some research on Manfred Trends. One interesting thing about the name Targa also is there is a graphics connection to Targa, True Vision TGA. So I don't know if there was a connection like what he thought when he named it Targa in graphics and the way it ended up rendering Ranger. I don't think there's a connection, but there is True Vision Advanced Raster Graphics Adapter, Targa, which were the first graphics cards for IBM compatible PCs to support high color and true color displays. So I think it might just be a coincidence because the time frame, the original game, Rendering Ranger R2 or R squared, Rendering Ranger R squared was released in 1995. Like I said, only for the Super Famicom. It is a port. It is exactly like if you were to get any of those. I've talked about this before on the show. The Arcade Archive series from Hamster. You know, it's basically an emulator sort of thing that they do. And, you know, you can play those games, the old arcade games, and they got a huge selection of them. This is not dissimilar. It's pretty much exactly like what the Super Famicom game looked like. It is a game that's part run and gun and part shooter, spaceships. So it alternates between sequences. I played through it. It feels very nostalgic. But as far as those types of games, for me, it didn't really hold my attention too much. It was kind of repetitive. It did have, you know, a lot of the same things that, you know, maybe back in the day, I would have enjoyed the game more. It's got some similarities to R-Type as far as the spaceship combat, but the run and gun piece of it just kind of feels tacked on. And this is no fault of the re-release at all. This is just the original game, right? It's just the run and gun piece is very underwhelming. But the ship combat is a lot of fun. Both segments have pretty much the same type of thing where you can upgrade your weapons, flip between your weapons, and use them against your enemies. The enemies are pretty difficult. It's very arcadey inspired. It looks like it could have been an arcade game. That being said, if you like that kind of nostalgic shooter combined with a run and gun, and I've looked at interviews with Manfred Trends on the development of Targa and Rendering Ranger R, and he said that the decision was made by Rainbow Arts to make it a combo like his previous games. So anyway, if you like nostalgic games, check it out. It's not my cup of tea, but it does have it. Each level is a little bit long, but I'm more of an arcade. My speed is more arcade. So, and it's just basically side scrolling until you meet the enemy at the end. And then I would put a lot of these old arcade games that I have played. So like arcade emulators that got tons of shooters available for Arcade Archives. Personally, I would go for one of those instead of this one. But if you were a Super Nintendo aficionado, they did an excellent job of having this game be very smooth, where some of the games you would see some choppiness. This was very well programmed and very well made. So, like I said, if you're a Super Nintendo person, check it out. Otherwise, pick up something else. I don't know. But anyway, that's my review of Targa. So, thank you for listening to the interview, and hope you stay tuned for next week, and we'll have more exciting words coming up. We've got the word growth with Sky and the word culture with Jen. And those are the next couple of episodes. So hope you enjoyed the interview and have a wonderful day. Bye.